Is he ready for senior international football now, Jim? Do you think he could even play a part in this window for the senior team?
He possibly could. I know there could be an opportunity there. I know Stephen alluded to it earlier on that he might play for us in Latvia and might join the senior team afterwards. But you only have to look at the players that have been brought up already, the young players, whether it's Festi, Evan Ferguson, who's made an impact with the senior team, that's for sure. Jason Knight beforehand. It wouldn't faze him. It certainly wouldn't faze him. I think he's that type of creative player that every time he gets on the ball, you're waiting for something to happen with him. Because he's a player who plays with his head up all the time, and he's fantastic at those little intricate passes. He can go by players. He scored last night. I was disallowed.
Soft keeper.
Yeah, but look, he can score goals as he showed, with the 21s, and he's an excellent talent. And do I think he can? Yeah, I think he could. He's played at championship level, and he's playing very well. So we're lucky to have him in this window, and I'd imagine sooner rather than later he'll get that senior call up. And it's funny that I came to the France game. We played against Iceland in the March window, and I came and I sat a few sort of seats away from Andy Moran. He was watching the game, which first of all I thought was great that you've got an under 21s player on his day off who he was at Brighton at the time, and he's come and he's watching his teammate Evan Ferguson play, and I'm sort of looking down at him saying, it'd certainly be you one day playing in the Aviva Stadium. And it's as I say, it's 21s. On behalf of the staff and myself, we're just delighted to have him for this game. And look, we see what happens going forward. We've certainly bigger games to come with the 21s, and for him to be part of that, certainly I know quite well he'd like to be part of it, but obviously if he gets that senior call up, it'd be great for him.
Just one other one from me. Because you're a man who knows the infrastructure of football in this country, League of Ireland stadiums, the grounds, the academies, the schoolboy clubs, the network of Irish football around this country, because it is so underfunded, because facilities are so desperately in need for funding and for money, and to improve these facilities and to improve that conveyor belt of players both in women's and men's football coming through, do you think it's a wise idea to be hosting 6 matches in the Euro 2028 Championship? Is that something that should be a priority, do you think, when the game itself here seems to be suffering?
Yeah, look, there's debate. There's certainly, I said it'd be a number of people would be saying it's great because it brings a real sort of a carnival of football, which would, hopefully get, decision makers at government level to say, okay, we need to inject money into football in this country. And then you'll also have the other people to say, well, look, there's far more concerns with regard to our academies, the infrastructure of football in this country, which I think it's evident that we do need funding. Our game does need funding, and I certainly think it's got to come from the government, our academy system needs help. We need to create an industry in this country where we've got full-time coaches working with full-time players, and that's bigger picture stuff. And I think, to answer your question about 2028, look, I think, you'll have people for and against it. I just think, okay, if it's going to happen, fantastic. It's going to sort of inject some sort of, feeling of, okay, there's going to be unbelievable games for players to attend, and I'm sure what rolls in behind that is funding, hopefully, for our game, and more people taking an interest in football. But look, I think it's certainly the elephant in the room with regards funding and what our game needs.
Thanks, Jeff.
How are you, Gav?
Oh, good. Was there any communication between the FAI and the Scottish FA about the Conor O'Riordan situation, how he managed to end up in 2 squad lists in 2 days?
No, it doesn't need to be, because, he hadn't played a competitive game with us, so there doesn't need to be. I don't think it's really a big story. It's just, okay, he wasn't involved in the September window. And, you might have, Scott Gemmell that's, obviously interested in building up his player pool. And what's gone on since then is a conversation with me and Conor, and he says he's desperate to play for Ireland. And I'm sure the people of Cork and Galway, where his bloodline is, are only, too proud of him joining up with the players for this game against Latvia.
Yeah. Any update on Tom Cannon and whether it's a long promised meeting between perhaps you and Stephen and him and his agent?
Yeah, look, Tom just started training on Monday with Leicester, so he's been injured a while. He's just back training. So, in regards to us sitting down and having a conversation with him, that hasn't happened yet, But I'd say sort of in the between this window and the next window, there should be conversations really, with Tom, because he's a player that would certainly add to the 21s, and he just needs to get himself fit, get himself in that Leicester team, and it's a good Leicester team, so it's a challenge for him to play first team football. But he's somebody else. He's played in that same 20s game, under 20s game that Conor did, and it's just unfortunate where the whole thing sits at the minute, because I think he's an excellent footballer, and I think he's certainly somebody we could do with.
Yeah. So it's still as you were.
Yeah.
In the summer again. Okay. Good. And his
long-winded way again there.
All right. And then Joe Hodge is back, obviously recovered from hamstring injury. What kind of a boost is that for you?
Yeah, Joe's the captain of the under-21s. He's another real leader. He's somebody that I've always admired as a footballer, and I think that probably showed in the game, the playoff game against Israel, where I'm throwing him straight in. I think he's grown since then as a player. He's went on and played numerous first team games with Wolverhampton Wanderers since then. I think Joe, he had such a promising pre-season with Wolverhampton Wanderers that he was disappointed in the first game of the season not to be involved against Manchester United, and he's worked hard, and unfortunately he pulled up on a hamstring in a first team game, but he's back now. He's been on the bench twice with the first team. I think that in itself is a measure of how highly he's rated, because he's only back off the treatment table. Okay, he's back, he's done a lot of hard work to get to that situation, and he's played minutes with the 21s. The other day I had a conversation with him, and he feels fine, and I just think he's a real boost for the players. He's I think everybody knows how dynamic he is, his passing ability, his aggression, he can control games. So to have him back involved is excellent news for everybody.